Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to be jumping back into the wonderful world of exploring the SCP Foundation. Today, we're going to be checking out SCP-2718, What Happens After, with the Exploring series. As always, links will be down below in the description to this original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. So if you would do me a favor, if you like this video after we go through it, please go over there and give this video a like. Check out his channel. He makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe as well as others. So give the man some love, give him a sub, etc., etc. We are doing this reaction live here for my YouTube members. So would love to have you guys come in here and join the discussions and come and hang out and chill as we do these reactions live. If you would like to do that, there's a join button down below this video. You can click that and see what YouTube membership benefits have any kind of interest for you, and pick what tier you would like to join. Come hang out. But regardless, I just appreciate you guys coming in, hanging out, checking out the video with me. With all that said, we're gonna jump into this here video, guys. So again, this is Exploring the SCP Foundation, SCP-2718, What Happens After. I'm assuming from this title, it's gonna have something to do about the afterlife, you know? What happens after you die, or potentially, I guess, you know, what happens after maybe the Earth dies or the universe dies or something. I don't know. I assume it has something to do with like afterlife or, you know, life and death, etc., etc. So let's jump in here and find out.
SCP-2718.
It's an interesting picture.
What happens after? The concept of the afterlife has plagued humanity since the dawn of time, provoking countless discussions, arguments, and more.
And wars.
The question of what happens when we die is often tied strongly to religion, with answers ranging from eternal paradises to fiery hells, or even reincarnation. It likely comes as no surprise to you that the SCP universe has delved into the concept of the afterlife in a few different ways, but today we'll be looking at a particularly grim version of it.
Nice.
2718 definitely starts in an odd way, with the SCP number constantly shifting, the object class listing an error, and the first line of the containment procedures actually describes the SCP itself. We see that SCP-2718 is a Damarung class cognitohazard. A cognitohazard is any sort of mimetic effect that can alter an individual's way of thinking.
Yeah, we've heard a couple of these before, like the story with the Leech Boy, etc. What happened at Site 13, I believe, is that video. So we've heard of some, you know, mimetic things and cognitohazards and things like that. So interesting.
Damarung is a German word meaning dusk or twilight, and as far as I'm aware, this is the only SCP that carries that classification. The containment protocols go on to say how forbidden 2718 is, and it's only by extreme chance that we've stumbled upon its report at all. It says that this report cannot be deleted or effectively redacted by any means due to the clearance level of the original author, suggesting an 05. And basically,
SCP is about a metaphysical concept related to death and the afterlife. So here's a bunch of images of Grim Reapers in hell. I love his little, like art, you know, descriptions that he put in here. He's like, hey man, I couldn't find art about this SCP, so here's a bunch of bullshit that I could find, brother. All right, give me a break. I like the attitude he has with this stuff. I love it.
Clearance level of the original author, suggesting an 05. And basically says if you close the article now, report it, and get immediate amnestic treatment, no disciplinary action will be necessary.
So I wonder if by reading this, you will die. If you read this and you don't get your memory wiped, you will die. Kind of a situation. You'll have like your soul taken from you, or what your consciousness, whatever part of the SCP would, you know, thinks about that, and you will die.
Of course, we read on. And the following section contains orders for any agent sent to handle this breach of SCP-2718. Basically, since this report is about a very dangerous cognitohazard that affects anyone who reads about it, and the SCP Foundation can't delete, redact, or restrict access to it normally, they have to find a workaround to conceal it. I'll spare you the technical details and summarize. Essentially, they are exploiting a weakness in their databases by constantly switching the designation of the article with another random one. This is responsible for the weird numbering at the top of the article and causes links to 2718 to disappear. By doing so, and drawing out the process using intentionally bad algorithms, 2718 is almost always hidden from view. But there is a very small window, when the process ends and before it restarts, when it becomes momentarily visible. This of course allows someone browsing the database to see 2718 and click on it, where they are presented with a severe warning. This is currently the Foundation's best way of containing 2718, as it's a very small chance that someone will happen to see 2718 in the database and proceed to read past the warnings. Of course, since we as readers always have access to each SCP, this explanation is just for the sake of the story.
Right.
The agent working on the terminal that accessed the page then has a unique job, because due to amnestics wiping people's memory, no living person has knowledge of 2718 other than them. Their task is to improve the containment protocols of 2718 in any way they can before their memories are wiped.
Interesting.
And 2718 goes back to being completely unknown again.
So is that part of the orders in the document itself? Let me rewind that and re-listen to that.
Because due to amnestics wiping people's memory, no living person has knowledge of 2718 other than them. Their task is to improve the containment protocols of 2718 in any way they can before their memories are wiped, and 2718 goes back to being completely unknown again.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the agents sent to respond to a 2718 breach are left unprepared for this task, and have only 2 hours to work on it. A log left by one of these agents mentions that if an agent fails to complete their task within 2 hours, or upon return they still remember the current year or name of the current president, they are to be terminated.
Yikes.
This suggests that the amnestic given to those who work on 2718 is a massive one. The log ends with the agent...
If they remember, it didn't take, is what I'm saying.
Agent saying that he was curious and figured his brain was hosed anyways, so he read 2718's description. He says to resist the urge, and hopes that the amnestic kicks in quickly. So far then, we really know practically nothing about 2718
what it actually
itself,
is.
other than it's a cognito hazard that no one wants anyone to read about in any way, but they can't get rid of the documentation. After doing so much teasing, we finally get into the meat of the article, where we get to find out exactly what 2718 is. This information comes from a transcribed audio recording made by a member of the O5 Council named Miriam Prather. Miriam starts by telling a technician to make this article a permanent record, allowing no one to ever tamper with it, saying that if there's only one article left in the whole database, let it be this one. Miriam seems rushed for time, and even lets the technician keep her security credentials.
So, because of the seriousness of this, could this potentially be an SCP-001 candidate, right? Because isn't that what part of the lore of SCP-001 is? It's not just like potentially the first SCP, but it's something that's like a serious, like, reality altering something SCP, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking of it incorrectly, and that potentially the reason why all these things could be called SCP-001 is because it's either the first SCP found or it could be the origin of reality itself. You know, I don't know, but I'm just wondering if because they're changing the name around and because of the seriousness of this, could this potentially also be like, you know, another one of those candidates where this is actually SCP-001 and it's just the number's been changed so much. I can't remember if there's an SC, there's a 001 proposal that expands on this one? Right.
As she says she won't be needing them. She then proceeds to begin her story, stating that she has been O5-7 for 77 years, but she'll only remain so for about 7 more minutes. She goes on to discuss the various methods available to the SCP Foundation to bring someone back from death. Each method is different, of course, but they fall into two categories. 1. Making a copy or clone of the person from when they were still alive, and 2. Turning back time, undoing the events that killed them. While these methods are, of course, vastly different, they do share a similarity, in that the person brought back has no memory of their death, or what comes after. In fact, the SCP Foundation has no first-hand testimony of someone dying and reporting on the afterlife, or lack thereof. Until now, of course. 6 months ago, the Foundation resurrected one of the O5s, named Roger, using a new procedure. Roger was different than the other O5s in two major ways. One being that he didn't use anomalous means to extend his life, and 2, that he took his vacations unannounced and in solitude. Due to these two factors, Roger died at age 73 due to a stroke, while alone on an island 18 years ago. It took 14 years to find his body, which they needed due to a physical key he had, as well as a mental key only he knew.
I feel like if you're a member of the Super Secret Council and you have, like, some kind of keys that the council needs for your group for the SCP Foundation to, like, function, I feel like even if you're going on vacation by yourself, you need to let people know where you're going. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need to know about your whereabouts, brother. Like, if you die and then this key disappears or someone take it and it goes into the wind, that's a big problem. That's a big problem, I'm just saying.
The combination of island weather, creatures, and time had reduced Roger's body to a pile of bone fragments, and so their usual methods of bringing people back were useless. Since they only needed one word from him, they figured they could use the new method to bring him back just long enough for him to utter it. But they outdid themselves, perfectly reanimating Roger.
Couldn't they also, I mean, I guess he's already dead, though. I was gonna say, couldn't they go to the plague doctor? Because the doctor reanimates people, right? But he only does it, I guess, in specific cases where they have the illness, the plague, whatever he calls it. But he also is dealing with people who are alive, he kills, and then experiments on, and then they get reanimated. So they're already dead, and they don't, like, their brain isn't functioning or whatever, then he probably wouldn't be able to do anything, right?
Perfectly reanimating Roger. Roger returned by uncontrollably sobbing for half an hour, followed by exhibiting constant signs of joy and relief. They kept him quarantined for 30 days, during which he cooperated completely, and so they restored him to his position on the council. He returned to the job with renewed vigor, wisdom, and insight, and began utilizing supplements to extend his life. Additionally, he began to show a greater interest in the Foundation's safety protocols, and developed a profound distaste for sacrificing D-Class on projects. Although the O5 Council did not think anything greatly unusual about this pattern of changes, you can likely see where this is heading.
Yeah, man didn't want to die anymore.
In their interviews with Roger, he claimed that he remembered nothing of the afterlife, cleanly passing all of their polygraph tests. Roger began looking into immortality, but according to Miriam, due to quantum uncertainty, even the SCP Foundation haven't found a way to accomplish that. Strongly disappointed by this information, Roger broke protocol and made direct contact with an apex-tier pluripotent entity contained by the Foundation. These entities are implied to be the strongest reality benders known to the Foundation. Roger covered his tracks well, so no one knew for some time that he had done so, but eventually the Council learned about it, believing that Roger wished to make a deal of some kind with this entity. That brings us to the present time of Miriam recording this, as earlier that day, she and another O5 member confronted Roger privately, and he confessed everything.
Interesting.
She replays an audio recording she made of Roger's confession, and we finally get to learn about SCP-2718.
Okay, so before we go on, just to summarize, they've, this thing is so dangerous, it's a cognito hazard. Anyone that sees it, they need to have an amnestic, to wipe their memory. And it's a powerful one, so they lose a lot of their memory. But before they lose their memory, they need to do whatever they can to update any kind of security protocols and improve upon the security of this specific SCP so that, people don't find it. And apparently the story of this SCP is that one of the O5 council members died on a vacation, and it had been such a long period, 14 years, I believe, that they weren't able to just simply reverse time or, whatever of their normal methods to bring this guy back because they needed something from him. So they used some other kind of resurrection protocol. And since then, he's been looking into ways to prolong and extend his life. Even though he claims he doesn't have any memory of the afterlife, he is acting in a way that suggests that he does, and he's doing everything he can to essentially not die ever again. Even going to the point of breaking SCP protocol to potentially make a deal with some kind of super reality bending crazy entity so he can live forever. That seems to be where we're at right now. So
I think it's best if I read parts of this verbatim. I dared not speak of this at first. You'd never have let me out of containment. The truth is, I was aware of all of it. I suppose there was a sweet oblivion, like deep sleep at first. But in retrospect, I think it was no more than a day. Slowly, but unmistakably, I reoccupied my corpse with dreamlike consciousness, numb for the first merciful hours, blind, deaf, and immobile, but then I seemed to reconnect to every nerve, and became aware of every sensation, more so than I ever was in life. I perceived myself trapped within an immovable object,
Jesus.
And the intensity of the struggle amplified, subtle, then acute, then racking. I cannot describe it completely, but imagine holding your breath, beyond urge, beyond pain, beyond desperation, head throbbing and eyes bulging, a dream of suffocation without end. My skin blistered and split in the sunlight. Biting insects descended rapidly. I felt eggs hatch, larvae crawl, gases build and burst within me, individual cells rupturing.
So this is like literally a play on like sleep paralysis. He essentially, I guess, died, but was trapped in his body after death and was completely aware of everything that was going on around him, trapped in there, and could feel and have sensation of everything. Being eaten, having the sun blister and destroy his skin, having it split and peel off him, bugs, gnawing at him, and, all that kind of stuff. Like, good Lord, could you imagine if that's what happens? That, you die, but you're still just trapped in this corpse? You know what I mean? You're just trapped there. Never ending pain for eternity, right? Like, at that point, it's like, yeah, I would much rather you just go ahead and, just burn me. I can't, I'm drawing a blank on the word right now, what it's called, but, just incinerate me, dude. Just put me to ashes and scatter me across the winds at that point. I'd much rather have that than be, thrown into a coffin and buried in the ground. Like, good Lord. That would be awful.
Interstitial fluids souring and blackening. Somehow my capacity to experience and store these sensations grew, even as I was keenly aware of my cerebrum being scattered and devoured. My perception expanded into the gizzards of birds and the depths of fire ant dens.
So he could still sense all of his body, even, afterwards? Like, he could still sense all the pieces of him being split and spread over the various creatures. Like, Jesus Christ, dude.
I was aware of every fingernail and strand of hair that pulled away in the wind, and my sensation clung to them as they settled in the ocean and dissolved in the maws of 1,000,000,000,000 diatoms. He goes on to say that his capacity for pain continued to grow rather than numb.
And yeah, like your sensation just increases and gets worse and worse and worse. Like, what?
Intensifying every second, month, and year. He says that although in life he imagined hell to be quite horrible, there would surely at least be a tormentor and some sense of justice, whereas this was illogical torment. He says, "I do not think this is a punishment. I do not think it is caused. I deeply suspect it is simply our condition, our nature to go on this way. Do you see? In all that time,
Nope.
I was certainly, absolutely, totally alone, and before long all memory of life had shriveled to a cinder, lost beneath my interminable anguish. Alive again, I suspect I cannot quite recall the worst of it, as if my living brain is too small for the experience."
Nah, dog, sign me up for living forever. Like, I don't care, dude. Like, make a deal with the devil, sign the contract, take my soul. I'm alive forever. This ain't happening. Like, you know, throw me to the universe where I decay into nothing then. That sounds better than this. That sounds better than this. Let me decay into absolute nothingness. I would rather just disappear into the void than experience excruciating pain and being devoured and pooped out essentially and transferred and changed throughout millennium to different forms and things. Like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
He admits that he went to the entity for help in making him immortal, as he refuses to return to that afterlife.
Yeah, fuck that.
He concludes that this fate awaits everyone who dies, and he'll do anything to avoid it.
Yeah, either make me immortal or, like I said, just erase me from existence. Like, go back in time and kill my parents before I was born. I don't want to exist. No. No. What's the point of having this, like, brief period of life? This, like, maybe, you know, 80 to 100 years of life, only to then spend the rest of eternity in this torment like that? I'm good, brother. Where it just gets worse and worse and worse. Like, maybe there's some kind of a point at some point where, like, your body's able to recoalesce and you get reborn again as something else after going through that. But then, you know, is it worth it? You know, again, for that brief period of existence to have to then go through that, excuse me, that extreme, like, torment for an extended period of time? I'm good. No. Yeah. Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying, dude. That's what I'm saying. Just wipe me out. Put me into nothingness. Throw me to the void.
Concludes that this fate awaits everyone who dies, and he'll do anything to avoid it, asking Miriam and the other O5 to join him. Miriam was dumbfounded, sympathetic, and most importantly, fearful. They called an emergency session of the council to share this information.
Like, if you didn't have an existential crisis and dread of death beforehand, that's gotta get amplified after that, right? Like, knowing that that's what happens to you after, like, it's one thing to not know. Like, it's one thing to not know, and it's like, will I just turn into nothingness, or, you know, is there actually an afterlife? I guess I'll find out. Either way, I guess it doesn't really matter, because either if there's nothing, then I will just simply be nothing, and that doesn't matter. And then if there's an afterlife, cool, I'm in the afterlife. But then to have it turn into that? Nope. Like, talk about sealing yourself away in a bubble of nothingness so, like, you can't be hurt or die or anything like that until you can figure out something. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not returning to that, brother.
And Roger gave his testimony again. Much of the council reacted calmly and with concern, but one stated that they must declare human death as a Keter-class SCP.
Death is an SCP now.
The council fell into a shouting match as Roger began sharing even darker details of his experience, and a few members moved to begin terminating dangerous SCPs to protect humanity. Here, Miriam mentions that the O5s became convinced, one after another, and she wonders to herself if belief is the key. O5-1 then silenced the room, saying that the council has lost all reason, and with only one possible explanation. The entire council would be given amnestics, except for Roger, who would be placed back in containment.
You know, I guess what if the place where he died is an SCP that then, caused his afterlife like that? You know what I mean? Like, what if that's the case? What if there was an SCP or some kind of anomalous thing that happened where he died that made him experience death in that way, that kept his consciousness alive and going throughout being, devoured and, et cetera, et cetera. What if that was the case and that's not actually what happens when you die? You know what I mean?
Roger bolted out of the room before the doors could be sealed.
Like, send me to the deer and turn me into hydrogen, brother. I'd rather become hydrogen than deal with that.
And Miriam chased after him to stop him, Roger, who would be placed back in containment. Roger bolted out of the room before the doors could be sealed, and Miriam chased after him to stop him, but immediately regretted her decision, as she desperately wanted the amnestic. Since Miriam now knows her fate is sealed, she had this article created and made it permanent, so that knowledge of 2718 wouldn't be forgotten, and she would be hopefully brought back from the afterlife that awaits her. The door suddenly bursts open, and gunfire erupts, leaving Miriam dead. We hear an MTF discuss a breach of a Ketter's SCP in another compound, where SCP-106 is contained. Rather than 106 escaping, it seems that Roger intentionally went into 106's containment, a fate considered by most to be worse than death, but perhaps it's better than SCP-2718. So that's the afterlife in the SCP universe then. Whenever anyone dies, they'll slowly experience the pain of their body decaying for all time, right? Well, no, as we have to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Right.
Starting with one of the first lines of the article. SCP-2718 is a
cognito hazard. So it just makes you think that that's what it is.
Meaning it affects your mind and way of thinking. This ties in with Miriam's statement of belief being the key, and why she was so regretful of not breathing in the amnestics. It's not that she wanted to live without the fear of knowing what the afterlife was. It was that she wanted to erase the cognito hazard. Basically, if you have knowledge of SCP-2718 and believe it, you are then affected by it, and it becomes your afterlife. Not only that, but it actively changes your way of thinking, so that you firmly believe this is the true afterlife awaiting everyone, not just those familiar with 2718. This has inevitably resulted in the spread of 2718, both in Roger confessing the story to the Council, as well as Miriam making the report on it permanent. 2718 is certainly one of the more horrific SCPs on the wiki.
Yeah.
Less so because of some terrible disease or monster, but because it plays on the existential dread felt by many humans since the dawn of time. It's unclear why Roger experienced 2718 in the first place, and who's to say that the idea of it being a cognito hazard isn't just a lie.
Right.
SCP-2718 is an odd SCP article since it really more fits the format of a tale, but it is definitely an effective one at evoking horror.
Let's see what the quote is here. As overseers, we witness, inflict, or endure great suffering. Yet what awaits us all is worse. The way an earache is worse than a bee sting. The way frostbite is worse than a burn. I was dead for 18 years, and my misery eludes description. Dare we try to fathom the collective agony of legions of ancient dead? I mean, yeah. Like, it is an interesting story, and it is interesting in the idea of, like, I guess, is it a chicken or the egg kind of a scenario where it's like, is it really a cognitohazard? Because again, it's like, what is the origin of it? Is it a cognitohazard that Roger somehow saw some other place, some other way? And then when he died, that's what his death became? You know, because it's like, did he believe that's what his death was beforehand? And then so when he did actually die, he experienced that? Or was it something that happened at another time? You know what I mean? So it's like, is his death and then reincarnation the actual like cause of this? Like, because he was infected with maybe he was infected with some kind of cognitohazard at some point in time that causes that, and then because of his resurrection, he was able to then spread the story so that, you know, SCP grew in power, that cognitohazard or whatever. Or, you know, was it something else? You know what I mean? Like, but maybe if she's not revived, she probably plans to wipe the cognitohazard from her mind to avoid it. Always like this one. Eccentric horror is very niche, but I dig it. I mean, yeah, man. Like I said throughout the video, dude. You know, if that were if you were to die and that was what your actual experience is, then yeah, I would be right there with them, trying to either A, like I said, figure out. I'd be going to the dark dude, that group. I can't remember the full name, the MC and D or whatever. Those dudes, you know, the guys that have been around for thousands of years, dealing with SCPs. I'd be like, yo, dog, I got some money. Hook me up with an SCP that's gonna keep me alive. Like, what are y'all secrets? You know, you got some immortal cream you just rub on your face every day or some shit, dude. You know, like, hook a brother up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not dealing with this death shit. Yeah, but it is an interesting idea. I haven't really seen, you know, another story that kind of plays in the idea of that when you die, your consciousness is actually just trapped in your body, and even though your body is dead, you still experience everything that happens to it. And not only do you experience everything that happens to it, the sensation amplifies over time and becomes worse. And you're consciously aware of every facet of your body more so than you were before. Every little bit of you that gets eaten and, you know, consumed and, you know, moved on to, you know, whatever as you go through the different levels of decay and being broken down throughout the food chain. Like, that would suck. It's an interesting idea that, like I said, I've never really heard before or played upon before, but yeah, that would suck. That would suck. So, I think it has to do with how he was revived. They mentioned that the other way of reviving people is less no memory of death. Right. And I mean, yeah, that could be too. That could be too. The actual how he got revived, you know, created the cognitohazard itself, you know? Or maybe it was a situation where, like, when he was revived, like, the actual act of him being revived is what made him re-experience, like, that in that moment. Like, him being revived is what kind of, like, brought his consciousness back and aware of all of its pieces, and he felt, you know, what happened to his body over that time that he was dead, and then, you know, he's brought back to life. You know, his body was rematerialized and brought back, but he had to experience that 18 years of decay in order to be brought back. You know, that could potentially be, you know, answer to that as well. But yeah, that is something to think about, man. That is something to think about. You know, that whole kind of like I said, taking like the sleep paralysis idea to a whole nother level. Because, like, you hear stories about people that, like, go through surgeries or something, and they've been given anesthesia and they're paralyzed, but they're still awake during the entire surgery and they still feel everything. Like, that's one of my worst nightmares, man. That is one of my worst nightmares. Like, I have a pretty high threshold for pain. You know what I mean? but like the idea of being essentially paralyzed and being able to feel and realize everything that's happening during a surgery, you know, being cut open, feeling all the cuts, feeling all the wounds, feeling, you know, them playing around in your insides and having that kind of pain, but not being able to like do anything about it. That's like one of my worst nightmares. That's one of my worst nightmares. That would be such a terrible fucking experience, dude. So, but very interesting story. Very interesting story. Very interesting play on death. And like I said, kind of, I guess, taking the idea of sleep paralysis, you know, to the next level. So yeah, that was exploring the SCP Foundation, SCP-2718, what happens after. Links, as always, will be down below in the description to the original channel and to the Exploring Series channel. Links to the original video and the Exploring Series channel. So if you do me a favor, go over there and click those links. Check out the video if you enjoyed watching along with me. Give it a like. And, you know, check out the Exploring Series channel. There's a lot of great content. And definitely deserves some love. So if you enjoy his stuff, give him a sub. If you would do me a favor, consider leaving this, you know, video a like and a sub, as it helps me and helps the channel grow. And yeah, if you would like to come in and join in the discussions live as we do these reactions, you know, there's a join button down below. Love to have you guys come in and hang out and join us. So you can click that and see if any of the YouTube membership benefit tiers that I offer have any interest to you. But regardless, hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for watching the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one.